Ready.
Okay, so, and speak.
Hello, my name is Carrie Weinberg, and the name of my talk this evening is Kim Gordon is My Spirit Animal and Other Lessons I Learned from the Breakup That Nearly Broke Me. So, a little bit of background. Earlier this summer, I was on vacation with my mom and sister in France, and we were on this fantastic cruise that my mother had, spent lots of money to take us on. Big family bonding experience, and as we pulled out of, as our ship sailed from Saint-Tropez, somewhere, it was right after midnight in France, my phone rang, and it was my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, oh, there he is, and, a photo of my boyfriend at the time popped up. He's holding our foster puppy, Vincent, and I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? My God, I'm so happy to hear from you. And it was a pretty devastating phone call. Out of the clear blue sky, he broke up with me while I was in France and on a ship, and with my parents in a room or with my mom and sister in a room that probably stretches from where I am to where Tanya is right over there. So it was a very, very small place, and a very small place to have to endure a lot of emotions that go along with the disintegration of a 4.5 year relationship, especially when you've lived with this person for 3.5 years. So I was really, really taken aback. But as my friend Dylan has told me before and since, sometimes the greatest difficulties yield your greatest gifts. And so these are the gifts that I have learned from, the disintegration of this relationship, and what I will know, facing tragic situations, which I'm sure there will be many ahead of me in my lifetime. But first of all, it's okay, it's okay to tell people. When you are just out of your mind sad, my inclination was, I've got to be strong and I've got to power through this. It's okay to admit to weakness. And whether it was, there was a lot of financial hardship that was unexpected with this breakup. I was not prepared for my expenses to double overnight. But if I was frank with people, whether it was the lady that I was dealing with my AT&T cell service, or my yard man, people were extremely kind and understanding and elastic. And they're like, that's okay. Pay what you can, and, pay what you can in another 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, thank you. Oh my God, I can get my yard mowed, you can trim the hedges, and I can still use my cell phone. People were exceedingly, exceedingly kind. And another thing was, I was far away, but as soon as I hit the soil of the U.S. and came back home to my house and realized that my boyfriend had completely moved out, and walls were bare, closets were empty, drawers were empty, I had a good friend who put me on the path. She's like, I know you're really sad right now, but the first thing you need to do is come up with a game plan. And she's like, figure out every single thing that you need, that you depended on him for, and figure out how you're going to circumvent this situation and handle it yourself. So whether it was contacting, Roosevelt, the yard guy, or determining how I was going to handle the care of the mini dogs and the foster dogs that I've handled, immediately I had to put my sadness to the side for a second and figure out how I was going to operate. And having an operational plan was, it was just very key to me moving forward as I went through all of this. And I'm consulting my notes. And, again, just knowing how you're going to function, and even mapping that plan out. You have it in your mind, but even typing it out in a Word document so you can consult it when you're sad and out of your mind is essential. And so that moving forward. Another thing that I learned that I've never really practiced before, it's okay to lean on your friends. In fact, it's okay to flop on them, especially if they are offering, if your friends are offering kindnesses, you're in a period in your life where sometimes you're not strong enough to sustain yourself, and it's okay. I had friends that were kind enough to bring me dinner, allow me to sit on their sofas and just, emote and get it out of my system. I had friends that put me in the car and took me on road trips, people that, put me on planes to take me to different places to distract me. And it was really hard because I've always been someone who has been very self-contained, but I learned to accept this. And it was, accepting these kindnesses and moving forward with what people wanted to help me with was essential to moving myself along to this path of recovery. And it was, you need to accept this. And, people are willing to reach out and help you. And that's what you should really do. Another thing that I learned, especially out here at this land, is sometimes it's okay to be rash. Sometimes you want to break stuff, you want to burn shit. And within moderation, that's a good thing. So there was some breaking of stuff. It was very symbolic. There was some burning of t-shirts, burning of books, and with everything that I threw into this fire pit right here, or everything that I smashed to bits and then later swept up from the floor of my household, I knew why I was getting rid of it, whether it was a guitar or a t-shirt, and I looked at it as, okay, I am severing ties to this very symbolic piece of my relationship. It's not that he is necessarily a bad person, it is just that this is something we shared together and it needs to be gone. So, and then, one of the things too that I learned, if your brain is screaming for reasoning, give it to your brain. I never really knew what was behind this breakup, and I kept analyzing it, and finally I was like, my brain needs something so I can move on. Some people might think it's valid, some people might think it's silly. I opted to visit a psychic, and I was like, okay, whatever she says, I'm going to accept as the reason this disintegrated without my knowledge, and I'm going to take this as history, and I'm going to move on. I'm not going to question it, I'm not going to dwell on it. That will be my reasoning. And just having that in place was, it gave me a peace of mind, and I was able to move forward. So you just kind of have to, sometimes when your brain needs answers and you can't get those answers, you've got to seek them where you can find them without dwelling too much with, the intent of moving forward. And then, another thing that was key to feeling better was just getting busy. As much as I wanted to sit in my house and watch the Royal Tenenbaums for maybe the 25th time, I knew that it was key for me to be around other people. So even though it killed me, there's a lot of value in taking a shower, going to work, and when you come home from work, when your house is silent in a way that you haven't experienced in years, it's important to get back out and be around other people, especially people that love you. Around this point in time, I was lucky enough, I had friends who were giving me tickets to all these different outings. I took a job with the Kessler Theater, so one of my first big outings was going to a film festival, and I'm not a movie buff, but I went and I watched every single movie that I could, and I sat in on every single panel that I could just to be around people who were talking about things that were not involving my situation. I was like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about the Flaming Lips and your documentary on them? Perfect. Okay, here's this action movie. I am not a fan of such, but okay, it was just opening my mind to absorbing what was around me as opposed to absorbing what was in my reality that I was already very well acquainted with. Another great thing, I mentioned that I was working at the Kessler Theater at that point in time. I went and saw every band that I could possibly see, even if I was not a fan of flamenco, jazz, whatever, because I knew I had something to learn, and there was something absolutely different there that I could wrap my mind around and distract myself with and see the value in, and go from there. And in that process, I really developed a sense of gratitude for all these wonderful things that people were placing in front of me and the wonderful things that my friends were doing. And I tried to practice gratitude. every single day as I realized, my problems in this world are very small compared to the very real problems with people who are searching for food, water, trying to keep their families together, etc. So I at that point in time, I tried to keep it in perspective, and I would try to read, go on different, newspaper sites from the Guardian to the New York Times, and just absorb myself into stories where people were facing very harsh challenges that, where it was a matter of their day-to-day existence, as opposed to like, okay, I just had my heart broken. I still have my house. I still have my dogs. I still have, I have fresh water to drink and food to eat. I'm going to be fine. And then, but sometimes that's not enough. So sometimes you need to take drastic measures and be okay with that. And with that, it's okay to lose yourself. I went on a couple of road trips where once I lost myself in a series of academic lectures that ranged from economics to physics to women in the military, and it was delightful that I could do this in this beautiful setting. And whether you leave home or whether you try to find that in the aisles of half-price books, I think it's vital to just find something that you can lock your mind onto and just distract yourself, again, from what's going on in your personal life. And, as I was trying to figure out, okay, I didn't really know which way was up at that point in time, but I could, I could decipher these things. So, and on a smaller scale, I did things at home. I rearranged my furniture. I bought new sheets. I had a friend come over and do, I tried to do whatever I could to rearrange my reality. She did a cleansing ceremony in my home. And then, another thing, the final thing, is putting stock in something. And, when I got to the point that I just really felt like, I was like, okay, I've done all that I can do. What can I look to? And then something popped up online. And one of my major heroes is the bass player for Sonic Youth, and her name is Kim Gordon, and she's always been fierce and fearless and very outspoken and also very fashionable. And even though I had no money at all at this point in time, I invested my very last cent in buying something from her clothing sale. She put up this vintage clothing sale, and so I bought this Kim Gordon shirt, and I was like, Kim Gordon will guide me through the rest of this. And and I had a lot of excitement about Kim Gordon and her couture wardrobe that she was offloading through this vintage store, and this is what I found out. A, this thing gave me strength. B, I felt like I had a lot more. I just felt like I had this ferocity to go forward and power myself through recovering through this breakup. And C, I found out that Kim Gordon and I don't wear the same shirt size, but it's okay. And that is my story of how Kim Gordon is my spirit animal, and I made my way through a ferocious breakup.